Hello, welcome back to Blender Social Live. In this episode, I'll be testing out this add-on for Blender called Differential Growth. In the past, actually, I tried something like this, but it's kind of more like a edge-based kind of differential growth from Asahidari. This one from Boris, I believe. This works in 3D, right? And you can read the articles. This is some examples of what it can do. So it's pretty cool. It's kind of like an add-on that's give you ability to use Blender, kind of to use this algorithm that makes something that occurs in nature, like in a flower or maybe like a fungi. Imagine if you have like I think this is the way I understand it. If you start with a shape like this, and then if you imagine if each of this edge kind of growing, kind of pushing and repelling, while it's growing, it's trying not to overlap with each other, and it's starting to have this kind of wavy pattern. And I think that's a kind of like a differential growth. Okay, in order to do this, anyway, I'm gonna try this. You just download the zip as usual from GitHub. Download the zip, and then preferences, and install the add-on from the zip. Okay. Once you have this installed, you're gonna have differential growth add-on here from Boris, and let's give it a try. I'm gonna use grid. I know this add-on will appear here. There's a couple of video talk about this. I'm gonna do like a super basic one. So we have a grid. If I tap Z and look at the wireframe, okay, this is the default grid. I'm gonna subdivide this a couple of times, and I'm gonna go to weight paint mode. Okay, so we need some kind of weight in order for this to work. So the super basic one, if we try to paint something, I'm gonna right click and change the radius. Let's say I start with something like this, right? And then if I just use this differential growth, so I'm just clicking on that, suddenly we have this kind of explosion until suddenly it disappears, right? It's become, we end up with this clump of objects. It's kind of interesting. It's a little bit like a mushroom like, but it's actually exploding in both directions. If I'm not wrong, you can actually undo that. Let me undo that. What's more interesting, however, if you try to paint on the edge like this, so if you put the energy, you know, like using the weight paint, if you paint this red color energy, or you can soften it using blur, and then you enable differential growth, it's gonna grow the edge of the grid. And then you can keep clicking, and you can see now this time the energy stay there at the edge, and then it's gonna keep growing. It's gonna start to create this wavy pattern, kind of like a mushroom or flower, like a fungi. This is I think if you're like a cloth or fashion designer, you will actually really quite like this kind of pattern in a dress. You can see shade smooth. Okay, suddenly we have this really cool surface. Just quickly give material. Right, it's really super interesting add-on. Let's try again, this time using circle maybe. So circle, by default circle doesn't have fill, so let's fill it with n-gon. Oh, actually fill it with a triangle, and we can control the vertices. I will do a subdivide. I should have used cylinder, maybe it's, but anyway, subdivide. Can we use the edge ring? Anyway, doesn't matter, just gonna subdivide it a couple of times and switch back to vertex paint. We're gonna paint the edge. If you put the energy on the edge, it's gonna give you that nice differential growth pattern. And then let me try like put across there as well. Let's see what's gonna happen. So while still in weight paint mode, select this object tab. You can use differential growth. It's gonna start growing, including the one at the center. The one at the center will die, but it's give like a nice surface there as well. If you actually make like a hole at the center, I think you're gonna get more interesting result. So again, we end up with this result, just like a little bit like a flower. Okay, and you can subdivide and shade smooth. Again, different material. If you want to try something that's more interesting, however, we can switch to using nodes like SVerchok or geometry nodes. I will start with SVerchok first, actually. Why? Because with SVerchok you can have weight right away. With geometry nodes you might need to recreate the weight every time. Anyway, I'll show it to you. This is a ring nodes, and it you can create subdivisions. Okay, let me save this. So div grow. So this guy doesn't have weight, doesn't have vertex group or weight yet. I will create a weight, vertex group weight, and just gonna call it group. Plug this in, and we can take a look at the weight paint. Nothing at the moment. You can try random value. And plug this in. Now we have random value. That's kind of like the weight on this guy over here. And yeah, okay, this is random, right? But it will still work. If we use the differential growth, it's gonna look at the weight from SVerchok and it's gonna create the pattern. The one near the edge, every time you have weight, like a red color near the edge, it's gonna give you like this kind of interesting result. And you can just keep on clicking. And I don't know, there must be another way to, instead of clicking this 100,000 times, there must be another way to do it. However, you can see just by like a few seconds of this randomness, you get a result. Pretty cool result. Immediately, you have this flowery pattern. Yeah, you can duplicate it. I mean, you can start from nothing. You can start again. If I make changes, okay, we start from nothing. Oh, we have glow. Okay, cool. Maybe increase the number and then select the objects, go to weight paint. Again, we have random. If I change that from random to noise, this is SVerchok vector noise. It's slightly different to geometry nodes one. Okay, we have this. Let's map range the noise value. So we have red and blue color. We need to ensure there's something around the edge. Okay, that's where the differential growth the magic will happen around the edge. It's gonna give you this wavy pattern. Again, we end up with something completely abstract looking, and it's gonna get slower and slower because it's doing like subdivisions. It's calculating on the fly basically. I actually quite like this. I duplicate it just in case if SVerchok decided to reset. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, there is a way. I mean, if you want to use geometry nodes instead of SVerchok, you can do that as well. So let me get rid of this. Okay, we still generate the original shape from SVerchok, ring, mesh viewer, and we have group, vertex group, right? You can now select these objects and go to geometry nodes, and then we're gonna be using the, for example, you use the noise from geometry nodes, the usual drill. And just pipe this output to, wait, okay, let's see. We need to have input. So I believe we can just pipe this out into the group node. Okay. Vector output. This should be weight. Okay, let me check very quickly. I have the same setup here, and oh yeah, the output is vector here. Yeah, my brain went blank for a little bit there, but anyway, same setup. And then this is geometry nodes, and the output is coming from this guy into this guy group. Okay, file, save as. So we have the noise from inside geometry nodes that you might be more familiar with than SVerchok, and we have this. Once again, we use differential growth. Whenever there's red around the edge, oh, okay, it's complaining about something. Maybe it doesn't like the setup here. Maybe I should delete some of this. Have to get rid of the weight there. Let's save this, reload, vertex group, and grow. Invalid key. Whew. It should work. I think it's clashing. It was clashing with the. It was clashing with the vertex weight from, because I have two of them and then it doesn't like it. Get rid of this and start. I wonder if I should just apply this. Yeah, if I apply the if I apply it, it works. So that means you better off using SVerchok. It was, yeah, it's clashing with this key or whatever. What if I displace this? Ah, okay. Well, interesting. Anyway, there should be a way to use both. So I overcomplicate the setup. Okay, let's say we have something like this. We have some red around the edge, and I just simply apply the modifier. Now after we apply the modifier, it will not complain. I can do the differential growth once again. So whatever there's red around the edge, it's just gonna keep growing and growing and growing, just like a mushroom. And you're gonna end up with like a flowery pattern like this. So in a way, it's probably better to simply use a SVerchok method. I think this should be float, so we can actually see something. I'm gonna use vector math, map range. I'm gonna remap the value. Okay, this is this is gonna be more interesting, I believe. So you can see here, if we are using SVerchok and geometry nodes, because we provide the geometry beforehand, and then we generate the weight over here, and then geometry nodes simply take over, and you can now add some red, okay, like the weight, like random weight on this guy over here. So after you do that, hopefully this guy will work. It's gonna complain again because of this. I remember I did this before and it actually works. Anyway, for now, we're gonna apply. And run the simulations. There you go. Yeah, it's a little bit experimental, but it's the whole point of this using Blender. Again, we have flowery pattern. If I didn't use geometry nodes, just using SVerchok and vertex weight, let's use noise, vector noise, or vector turbulence in fact. Pipe the vertices into this guy and then the scalar into the weight. and map range. If we can generate like a weight that's kind of just around the edge, it's gonna look a lot more interesting. Again, we have like a crazy random value. Something like this. Yeah, this time it works because it's just using SVerchok. So we always started with ring. Just for simplicity, but you can actually start with any type of surface. This time we have more resolution or less resolution around the edge. I'm gonna click this like 100 times until I like it and stop. But anyway, you got the idea. It's like a fire at the edge of paper, and you end up with this beautiful looking surface. So yeah, I think for this, you're better off using SVerchok for now. Geometry nodes, I think we'll be able to do this as well if it's not clashing with this add-on, differential growth add-on. Because with SVerchok, normally, okay, SVerchok made something, and then whenever you do the differential growth, it's just gonna be on top of it. With geometry nodes, it's kind of clashing because geometry nodes try to override the weight. It's I remember it was working at some point, but anyhow, this is what we got so far. So again, I might overcomplicate some of the stuff. You don't need to use SVerchok or geometry nodes. You can just paint while you're seeing this happening. So you could actually, let me show you. You could start with a grid, for example, and subdivide, and then go to weight paint, and then you use the gradient. By default, gradient is doing linear gradient like this, right? So it's we can see the differential growth is happening. You can also use radial and just draw around the edge like this. It's gonna do the magic for you. If you do the the gradient at the center like that, it's gonna grow. It's gonna try to grow as well, like a mushroom, but it's better if you draw this near the edge, so it's gonna continue doing this kind of a growth pattern. So there's another idea here. So if you are using SVerchok or geometry nodes to create surface, just draw a surface with some weight, but with a hole like cheese pattern. This will do like a very interesting differential growth. So wavy pattern around the edge where there is a hole, and you can do this in 3D as well. Okay, so something to try maybe on the next live noding or BSLIVE. Anyway, hopefully you find this useful. Thanks again for tuning in, and I'll see you next time. Thank you.